I'm going to do something I know I probably shouldn't do because I'm just going to piss off someone no matter what I say, but I'm going to talk about politics. And I swear it's work-related, though. This is directly work-related. But before we get into that, I just want you to really know that I don't have a political agenda by doing this video. I don't care who you vote for. I don't care who you vote for. If you vote for Trump, if you vote for a Democrat, if you vote for a third-party candidate, if you don't vote at all, I don't really care. I think they're all insane. Okay? But I want to make sure you understand where I'm at on the spectrum because we live in such a divisive society that no matter what you say, someone will accuse you of being, you're alt left, or you're alt right, or you're alt something, or outrage, everyone's a horrible person, blah, 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 whatever. I want you to know where I stand. So I'm showing you my political compass test. Now, this is a test that tells you where you are on the spectrum. You got two screenshots here. One is just the raw data. One shows you against other kind of famous politicians or people or thinkers, just so you know who you compare to. If you look at my test, I could not be more centrist. I swear I didn't try to be centrist. This is just where I am. I believe in compromise. I believe in giving up a little bit of what you want in order to get a little bit in return, right? So I'm very, very center. I'm literally on the GD line. I am center. I am not left. I am not right. I have some left leanings. I have some right leanings. It all balances out and puts me right smack dab in the center. Now, I do have some libertarian leanings because I don't like people telling me what to do. So that makes sense. If you look at who I am against famous politicians, I'm most close to Jill Stein. So I'm not extreme on either end of the spectrum. And again, I don't care who you vote for. I'm not going to call you names. I'm not going to whatever. I don't care. But there is a topic that I do care about, and that's workplace bullying. Workplace bullying is a topic that is near and dear to my heart. It started when I was the target of workplace bullying, and I didn't understand what was happening to me, and so I sought to understand it. I was doing my doctorate at the time, which is in psychology, but with a specialization in industrial and organizational psychology, and I really wanted to understand it. I started really digging into all the research about it, started integrating it with a lot of coursework I was doing, ultimately ended up doing my doctoral dissertation on the topic of workplace bullying. I studied how young professionals cope with being the target of it in the hopes that what I found could help people in the future. Maybe I'll do a whole separate video on my dissertation someday. Who knows? But this is a topic I have studied a long, long time, almost a decade. In fact, I have lectured about it. I've done work in it. I've helped organizations tackle it. I've done all this stuff related to workplace bullying. It is something that I believe is so, so, so important to address. Which is why I was a little perturbed when the New York Times editorial board endorsed Amy Klobuchar for president. And Elizabeth Warren, I don't care about. We're not going to talk about her in this video. We're going to talk about Amy Klobuchar. Because Amy Klobuchar, I have enough evidence to be pretty dang certain that Amy Klobuchar fits the bill of being a workplace bullying. I can never know to 100%, right? Because I'm not there. I didn't experience it. I haven't gone and assessed it. I have talked to people who work for her, but I was not there. So I'm not 100% on this. I probably have to mitigate it and say probably a workplace bully, but yeah, like in my opinion, someone who has exhibited the behaviors that have been documented from Amy Klobuchar deserves to be nowhere near any leadership position in the world, let alone the White House. And I'm going to prove it. We're going to talk about why this is. I'm going to show you evidence. Don't worry. I'm not just going to pontificate. Now, this was an article I wrote for Forbes about a year ago when Amy Klobuchar announced her candidate. When leadership turns toxic, the fine line between being tough and being a bully at work. Now, I wrote this article because, you can see I used a big old picture of her in it because it was about her, right? Shortly after Amy Klobuchar announced her bid to become the next Democratic nominee for president, horror stories began popping up detailing years of consistent abusive treatment of her staff. The reports contend that her reputation made it difficult to recruit someone to manage her presidential campaign. In response, Klobuchar's supporters argued she was just being targeted due to her gender, a poor innocent woman, and that a man in her position would never be considered a bully and would just be called tough instead of toxic. So that was the talking point I kept hearing over and over again in the media. I'm just tough to work for. I'm a tough boss. If I was a man, They would never accuse me of being a bully because that's what men are expected to do. BS, Amy Klobuchar, BS. I don't play this game. I don't play this game of holding different genders to different standards of behavior. I'm a woman, for Christ's sake. And I'm not exactly like a demure little thing either. So I understand being mischaracterized because women sometimes are held to different standards than men. I get it. I'm not going to say it doesn't exist. I'm absolutely going to say that this does not apply in this case. No way. We're going to talk about that. Let's look at some of Klobuchar's behaviors. So some of the links I cited here. Number 1, this one's Politico. Klobuchar's opening pitch sidetracked by staff horror stories. The run-up to Klobuchar's expected presidential campaign launched on Sunday. Again, this was like last year. Was sidetracked by former aides speaking anonymously for fear of retribution, who described a toxic work environment, including demeaning emails, thrown office supplies, and requests for his staff to perform personal chores for the senator. I'm going to show you another story. This is from Intelligencer. In a similar report, I guess this is from Huffington Post, Al Franken recalled, Senator Al Franken, you think of him what you will from what's happened to him, but someone with a position of credibility. Senator Al Franken recalled an incident in which Klobuchar directed an aide to berate herself. A young Klobuchar staffer was sent to explain the senator's lateness to the Franken staffer. "I'm supposed to tell you," she said with a look of horror on her face, "Amy Klobuchar is late today because I am bad at my job." Amy Klobuchar sent one of her staffers to tell someone, "I am bad at my job, and that's why she's late." I mean, come on. But the best article I read on the topic was actually from BuzzFeed. And it's got a lot of examples in it. We're going to take a close look at this one. Staffers documents show Amy Klobuchar's wrath towards her aides. It's hard to explain the anxiety that permeates the office, a former staffer for the Minnesota Democrat told BuzzFeed News. Amy Klobuchar has laid the grounds for a presidential run on an image of Minnesota nice. But behind closed doors, her Washington, D.C. office, the Minnesota Democrat ran a workplace controlled by fear, anger, shame, according to interviews with 8 former staffers, one that many employees found intolerably cruel. She demeaned and berated her staff almost daily, subjecting them to bouts of explosive rage and regular humiliation within the office, according to interviews and dozens of emails reviewed by BuzzFeed News. That regularly left employees in tears, 4 former staffers said. She yelled, threw papers, sometimes even hurled objects. One aide was accidentally hit with a flying binder, according to someone who saw it happen, though the staffer said the senator probably didn't intend to hit her when she threw it. Flinging binders at people. Like sane people don't do that. Come on. Maybe I will admit there was one time when I chucked a water bottle at a wall when I was really pissed off at something at work, but I never threw anything at anyone. Come on, man. No, people don't do that. I cried like all the time. In the emails seen by BuzzFeed, often sent between 1 and 4 in the morning, Klobuchar regularly berated employees, often in all capital letters, over minor mistakes, misunderstandings, and misplaced commas. Klobuchar, in the emails, which were mostly sent over the past few years, referred to her staff's work as the worst in years, the worst in my life. When staffers made mistakes, the emails show, she reamed them out, and sometimes, emails show, threatened to fire them over threads that included many of their colleagues. So she's sending emails, CCing a whole bunch of people, threatening to fire you. Come on. Are you kidding me? As Klobuchar prepares to potentially announce a presidential bid, again, this was last year, 4 of these former staffers said they were sharing emails and anecdotes with BuzzFeed News because they believe that insight into her office reflects on the senator's ability to run the country. You think? And then there's some people saying nice things about her. She's the best boss I ever had. Listen, why do people do that with workplace bullies? First of all, Workplace bullies don't tend to target everyone. They target people who they want power over. So, and with other people, and there's actually research to back this up, workplace bullies are generally pretty charismatic people. They know how to play the game. They know how to play politics well. I mean, it's probably why Amy Klobuchar is a successful politician, right? She knows how to turn it on, which also, to me, is even more damning when you look at evidence like this, because she knows better than this. It's absolutely insane. The senator cared for me deeply. I probably shouldn't mock her in a voice. I probably shouldn't do that. All right. Some former aides, however, say Klobuchar's behavior as a leader didn't just affect her employees, but limited their ability to conduct Senate work, creating a chaotic environment where staff were forced to devote as much time to managing their boss's unpredictable anger as they did to governing. She can be just as mad about a crisis with Facebook as she was about being given the wrong clothing at an event, said a second staffer, pointing to the senator's work issues surrounding Facebook. It will take you just as much staff time and energy to put out that crisis as you spend on Facebook. So they're referencing someone picked out the wrong clothes for her to wear to an event or something, and she was just as pissed off about that as she was about Facebook hearings. Come on, man. The employees all asked not to be named because most have a fear of retribution from Klobuchar, who was first elected in 2006. They were hesitant to describe specific incidents on the record or publish the text of emails because they feared it would make them identifiable to the senator. I've always been taught that your true character shows in how you treat those with less power than you behind closed doors. The way Senator Klobuchar behaves in private with her staff is very different than when she's in the public eye, and that kind of cruelty shouldn't be acceptable to anyone. Okay, so what do I mean when I say workplace bullying? I think that this is important to define, and I do actually have a definition of here. We're going to go with Bartlett and Bartlett's definition. Now, I want you to see where this comes from. There are all sorts of definitions about workplace bullying out there, and because I've spent so much time reading the research available, I was able to kind of pick one that I think encompassed most accurately all the different dimensions of workplace bullying. So this is actually from an article that was published in Advances in Developing Human Resources, which is an academic peer-reviewed journal. It's legit, called Workplace Bullying, an Integrative Literature Review. And the reason I chose this one specifically is this is a review of the literature surrounding workplace bullying, so it was a good broad spectrum of information. This is actually available for free, I believe, on ResearchGate, so if you want to see this article, it is available for you to go and see. So that is the definition that I chose to use and outline in my article. According to Bartlett and Bartlett, workplace bullying is defined as the experience of repeated and unwelcome negative acts, such as criticism and humiliation, occurring at a place of employment that are intended to cause fear, distress, and harm to the target from one or more individuals in any source of power over the target, where the target has difficulties defending him or herself. Now, there's a lot to break down in this definition, but a key word to consider is repeated. Workplace bullying is rarely a one-off experience. Rather, it is the experience of a combination of harmful behaviors over time. So this is one of the things that I really used when I was defining a tough boss versus workplace bullying. One of the first categories I said is tough bosses have bad days. Bullies are consistently bad. This is not an issue of someone having a bad day. This is an issue of consistent behavior over time. All too often accusations of workplace bullying are hurled around when someone has just done something one time. Maybe they had an outburst in a meeting, or they said the wrong thing, or they made a mean remark, or they did something once, maybe twice, but it wasn't a series of consistent behaviors. When you're looking to assess workplace bullying, you're looking for consistent behaviors over time. And I'm going to argue that all the evidence that we have in those articles that are cited, those are consistent behaviors. She had a staff living in fear of working with her. Let's continue. These behaviors may have to do with work, such as consistently being expected to meet unreasonable deadlines, maintaining an unmanageable workload, having information withheld that impacts performance, and being pressured into not taking advantage of benefits to which you're entitled, such as vacation days or reimbursement for expenses. These behaviors may also include personal attacks, such as being regularly humiliated or ridiculed, having gossip and rumors spread about you, being purposefully ignored or excluded from the group, or being a target of excessive teasing or criticism. The behaviors could also be more severe, such as being shouted at as the target of spontaneous anger, or experiencing behaviors with the specific intention of intimidation. So what I'm saying here is that the behaviors that we're looking for, it spans a whole spectrum of work-related behaviors, person-related behaviors, and then violence and harassment is kind of at the end. And not to say it's insignificant, but it actually is one of the more rare forms of workplace bullying. There's usually a lot of bullying that manifests itself in terms of work-related behaviors, person-related behaviors. The source I'm using for this is called the Negative Acts Questionnaire Revised. It's one of the ways that workplace bullying can be assessed. It is an internationally used scale that is actually also available if you just Google Negative Acts Questionnaire Revised. It's going to come right up. If you want more information about it, reach out to me. I actually have a document that will allow you to assess workplace bullying, something I've given to a lot of organizations, no questions asked, because I think this is something that's really important that organizations know how to assess this. Tough bosses can have a bad day. They can be stressed out, have an outburst in a meeting, forget to give you something you need or need to do your job, snap at you when you're trying to explain what you're not getting the results you want, make an unreasonable request that requires you to work long hours, It crosses the line into bullying when these behaviors become standard operating procedure, when they occur every day rather than once in a while. Tough bosses drive you to produce your best work. Bullies rule through fear. And for this one, I cited Al Franken's example of demanding that an employee go and demean themselves because she was late to a meeting. I mean, come on. What type of person actually asks one of their employees to go to another office and say, I am bad at my job? That is a horrible thing to do. Tough bosses are strategic. Bullies are irrational. Tough bosses are tough because they are focused on achieving results with the performance of their team taking priority over how people feel. Right? That's a pretty typical of who we consider a tough boss. They don't care about emotions. They don't really care how you feel about things. They want you to get the job done. On the other hand, bullies care about power more than anything else. Sometimes that might go hand in hand with driving towards results. Other times, their efforts will be directly counterproductive to achieving the goal. Chucking a binder at someone, is that going to help you achieve your goal? Forcing people to demean people, is that going to help you achieve your goal? Sending emails with all sorts of people CC'd, threatening to fire someone, is that going to help you achieve a goal? No. Spoiler alert, no. Tough bosses are tough on everyone. Workplace bullies have specific targets and they play favorites. When you work for a tough boss, they don't just have high standards for you, they have high standards for everyone, regardless of rank, experience, tenure, or title. There are no favorites and there are no targets. That means everyone is on the same level. Bullies are different. They don't target everyone with their difficult behavior. This is really important to understand. Bullying is a power play. They tend to target employees who are more vulnerable and less likely to retaliate or confront the problem. But that doesn't mean their targets are underperformers. In fact, they can be very strong performers who may intimidate their boss, presenting a threat to their power. That's why there's a special focus on keeping them in their place. Now, one point that I want to make on the issue of gender is that when a man is a bully, they tend to bully other men, men and women about 50% of the time. 50% of the time they bully men, 50% of the time they bully women. When women are bullies, they bully other women 80% of the time. 80% of the time. And so all these people making arguments that Amy Klobuchar is just being attacked because she's a woman and we hold women to different standards. Well, guess what, guys? By dismissing her behavior, what you're doing is you're creating a toxic environment that is primarily going to impact women. 80% of the time, women who are bullies target other women. They're not targeting men for the most part. They're targeting other women. So dismiss it if you like, but you're leaving a trail of women in your wake who are the target of this sort of behavior. What should you do if you work for a bully? When workplace bullying is reported, less than 20% of employees will provide help to the target, leaving them to fend for themselves. What that means is that if you find yourself working for a bully, rather than a tough boss, your best bet is to find greener pastures. Go somewhere else where you will be valued and appreciated. And not for nothing, but that's exactly what Klobuchar's staff has done. Between 2001 and 2016, she boasted the highest turnover rate in the Senate at 36% a year. Where's that source? That source is also coming from Politico, so not some rinky-dink website. Politico is a very reliable source. The worst boss in Congress. New data, again, this is 2018, data outranks the lawmakers with the highest staff turnover. Let's see, shall we? That's highest in the House. Highest staff turnover in the Senate. League storms? Data covers the fiscal years from 2001 to 2016 in the Senate. Who is number one at the very top of the list? Amy Klobuchar. 36% of her staff turn over every year. We got Maria Cantwell, Joe Manchin, Susan Collins, Richard Blumenthal, Lisa Murkowski, Dianne Feinstein, Kristen Gillibrand. That's interesting. I want to guess Kristen Gillibrand. Jean Shaheen from my state of New Hampshire. I have to probably look into what's going on there. Michael Bennet, also running for president. For what it's worth, though, I don't really think Michael Bennet did not get endorsed by the New York Times. All right, we're not going to talk about Michael Bennet. But Amy Klobuchar, absolutely top of the list. Now, I want to tell you what happened after I published this article. Because the thing is, I had seen all the research when I published this article and I had talked to a couple people, but after I published this article, listen, people got in touch with me. I heard so many more stories. I heard stories from people who worked on the Hill who really said, like, this is known about Amy Klobuchar. Like, do not go near her. Like, do not work for her. Like, last person you want to work for because of these behaviors. It was very, very common. I heard from people who did work for her, backed up everything that was said. I didn't feel the need to revisit the topic because I felt I already had. I was actually trying to be balanced in this issue because I really didn't know. And this is important. I wasn't trying to do a hit piece on Amy Klobuchar at the time. I even ended the article. Of course, we can't know for sure if she's tough or if she's toxic because only those close to her have witnessed what's occurring. But if the existing reporting is accurate, she's walking a fine line at best. So I really wasn't trying to take sides in this. I was trying to say, here's what a tough boss would do. Here's what a bully would do. Here's some evidence for you to consider. But after I wrote this article and I heard from people, geez, man, like there is no doubt in my mind that calling Amy Klobuchar a bully, based on all the available evidence I have, is probably pretty accurate. Now, I do want to say that, listen, all of these articles could be wrong. All of these people could be lying. And I wasn't there and I didn't witness it personally and I haven't done an official assessment on it, so I could be wrong. But I don't think I am. I do not want this woman to be elected president. I do not believe she belongs in a leadership position anywhere. And if you're thinking about going to work for Amy Klobuchar, like, good luck to you. I am sure there are people who do actually have great experiences with her as a boss. I really do. I mean, the thing about workplace bullies too, and there's also research to back this up, is that they know how to play the political game. They know how to turn it on and be lovely and charming to work with. They probably have people that really, really love working for them. They know, this is probably why she's a successful politician, to be honest, because she knows how to turn it on, she knows how to turn it off. But New York Times, you dropped the ball on this one, man. Again, I don't care about Elizabeth Warren, whatever. I don't even know that endorsements mean much of anything, but I'm not an expert in politics. I'm just an average person. Who the hell knows? But I would never endorse her for president simply because of the history that she has in this. I mean, especially, like, according to a lot of people are concerned with the way Donald Trump is treating his staff. And certainly I have concerns there as well, but you know, I haven't seen nearly as much evidence about Donald Trump being a toxic person to work for as I have Amy Klobuchar. And so for a publication like the New York Times, which is, I'm sorry guys, again, I'm centrist, but New York Times is like liberal, right? To call out behaviors of Trump over and over and over again, but then to endorse a person like Amy Klobuchar, absolutely blows my mind. I don't care what you think of her politics. There are centrist moderate politicians out there that are not workplace bullies, and I would really rather have one of them. So those are my thoughts on this endorsement and a little bit more information about workplace bullying. Listen, if you're being bullied at work and you're looking for help, reach out to me. I have resources that can help you. If you're an organization that is looking to combat workplace bullying or wants to assess whether or not what is going on is actually workplace bullying, hit me up, man. I have resources that can help you. This is a really important issue to tackle. Between like 30 and 40% of people experience workplace bullying. It is a horribly traumatic thing to go through. This is not an issue to be taken lightly, and people who do this stuff should not be in positions of leadership. That's my position. Hey, agree, disagree, leave a comment. Let me know what you think.